Hello boys and girls, today we are looking at percents and decimals, which is 4-7 from our textbook. Here are your learning targets for today that you need to write down. I can write percents as decimals. I can write percents with fractions as decimals, and I can write decimals as percents. So I want you to think about these questions here. Think about percents and what they represent. If you remember from the 4-6 video, we talked about how percents are a number out of 100. Also, think about our number system and what numbers to the right of a decimal point represent. So for example, 9 and 36 hundredths, what does this represent in our number system? Okay, today we are looking at writing percents as decimals. So we're looking at this 7%, and we want to write 7% as a decimal. There's two methods. The first one is to write the percent of as a fraction. And again, if we remember 7%, since we've got that percent sign on here, that's telling us that it's out of 100. So we can write it as 7 over 100. Now, since it's in a fraction form, we can write that as a decimal. 7 hundredths tells us that we are in the hundredths place, second spot after the decimal, and our decimal will look like that. The second step is to divide mentally. So if you think about this 7 100ths, that's telling us 7 divided by 100. And if we look here, okay, it says when dividing by 100, so anytime we're dividing by 100, the decimal point moves 2 places to the left, okay? Which is what this blue is telling us, that when we divide mentally, we move the decimal of the number 2 places to the left and we add any zeros. So we have our 7%, okay? Our decimal is right here after our number. We move it 2 to the left. 1, 2, put our decimal point there. Now we have an open spot here, so we fill in with a 0. So that 7% looks like that. Okay, there's a couple here for you to try on your own. First one is 8%. You can either write it as a fraction, so 8% is out of 100. 8 hundredths, so it looks like that. Or 8%, you can move the decimal spot 2 to the left, 1, 2, and then it's going to be the same thing. All right, 54%, again, you can write it as a fraction. So 54 hundredths looks like that. Or you can move the decimal spot 1, 2 to the left. 0.54. Now this one where there is a decimal point on here, okay, and there's a number coming after the decimal, I'm going to move this one 2 to the left. 1, 2, 0.842, which is 842 thousandths. So we just took the decimal point from where it was in our number, between the 4 and the 2, and we moved it 2 to the left. All right, now we are looking at taking decimals and writing them as percents. So now we're working backwards. So we want to write 4/10 as a percent. Again, two methods for this. We can write the decimal as a fraction. Well, we read it as 4/10, which tells us it's 4 over 10. Now, since it's a percent, we want it to be out of 100, so we want our denominator to be 100. So I'm going to multiply both of these by 10. 4 times 10 is 40. 10 times 10 is 100. Now, 40 out of 100, since our denominator is 100, we know that it is going to be 40%. Okay? The second method is to multiply mentally. So when we were going from a percent to a decimal, we divided by 100. Now this time, since we're turning it into a percent, we multiply by 100. And so when we do that, it is the same thing as moving the decimal spot 2 to the right. So in this case, 4/10, we take our decimal spot, we move it 1, 2 to the right. Again, fill in with zeros in the empty spot, so that will be 40%. Here are a couple for you to try on your own. Okay. 5/10, we could write that as a fraction. Now again, we need the denominator to be 100, so we multiply by 10. So we have 50 over 100, which equals 50%. Or you could move your decimal spot 2 to the right, or the same as multiplying by 100. And again, we get 50%. Oops. Okay, I'm going to zoom in so we have some more space here. Okay, 34/100, we could write that as a fraction. Since it's already in the hundredth spots, it's over 100. Now our denominator is 100, we don't have to do any multiplication, so then this we know just equals 34%. We could also start with our decimal, or with our 34/100 and a decimal, and move the decimal 2 to the right, and that would be 34%. Next one, 9/100 is how we read that number, so that tells us we have 9 over 100, which equals 9%. Okay. Or we could start with our decimal, move the decimal spot 2 to the right, and again, that's where we drop our percent sign, so 9%. Here are key concepts to remember, which means very important. We need to remember these things. So I would pause the video here, copy this chart down. Percents as a decimal. So this is reminding you how to move a percent to a decimal. To write a percent as a decimal, divide the percent by 100. Same thing as moving the decimal spot 2 to the left. And remove the percent symbol. So 25%, move it 2 to the left, and our decimal is 25/100. Writing a decimal as a percent, to write the decimal as a percent, multiply the percent by 100, or move the decimal 2 to the right, and add the percent symbol. So 58/100, move our decimal over 2 to the right, and add our percent sign. So make sure you have this written down in your notes. All right, go ahead, head on over and take your NICOOT quiz for 4-7. If you still are confused, you can go back and re-watch the video. You can also look at the examples in your book and watch any of the tutor videos in the online textbook.